Welcome to the Women Living Well After 50 podcast. I'm Sulon Carrick and I'm passionate about inspiring, motivating, supporting and informing women over 50 to embrace this exciting time of life. Health and wellness in mind, body and spirit are the foundations for living well, but there is so much more to a life well lived. Each week, through conversations with my guests, I'll be presenting topics that will help us all to live well and enjoy life. So join me as we discover new ways to become women living well after 50. Are you ready to start living? What are you waiting for? Let's get started. Welcome to the Women Living Well After 50 podcast. I'm Sulon Carrick and it's lovely to have you join me. This is part 2 of my interview with Melissa McGowan of Menocollective. We've been talking about menopause, leadership, burnout, energy management and transformation. And we're going to be going into part 2 now. So if you missed the episode 1, part 1, pop back and listen to that first, and then you can carry on with episode 2. Now, I want to talk about energy because you talked about burnout, and especially women in, well, if they're in a leadership role or an executive role, but also other women who might have families, have got other commitments. And as we said, we try to do it all. We don't want to draw attention to the fact that, hey, my hormones are all out of whack as well. So how can we, and I look at my daughter who's in a similar situation. She's 41. She has a very, she's an executive. It's a very demanding role that she has. She has 2 little boys. She has a fabulous husband who sort of takes on the more caring of the boys, the day-to-day duties. But I can see now that we're talking and other women that I've talked on the subject of menopause, she's probably going to be soon or in a little while facing the same thing.
Yeah.
And I'm concerned when I see her as well that, she pushes herself.
Yes.
So it's right out there, really. So how can women really avoid that burnout, but still feel as if they're living up to their expectations, I suppose, which are always way higher than everyone else's?
Yeah. Look, I'm really passionate about this area because a lot of the women, and I do coach some men as well, are exactly where you described your daughter's. Your daughter is like, we want to be able to deliver great results in our jobs, but not at the total cost of our health and well-being. So, even if I go back to when I was still in-house and in my, HR role, I was always passionate about energy management. I remember once I was running a leadership program and I said, we're going to do the first session is going to be on energy management and sort of executive stamina, like looking after yourself. And this was like wild back then, and it was the top rated sort of session out of a 9-month program. But if I go back to this idea of the women in their late 30s and early 40s, like your daughter, the conversations happening around what's sort of this next stage of hormonal change. So that's already helping them get a little bit of an understanding. Now, we don't want them to be, terrified. We don't want them to be like too scared, but we do want them to be aware.
Yeah.
Because if they can, whilst I talk a lot about managing, menopause symptoms, frankly, if they can manage their burnout symptoms, then, they are going to be, their nervous system, they're going to be in much better shape to come and deal with everything that, perimenopause is going to throw at them and not be in that situation where it's having, hopefully such a negative impact on them, their work and their family. So I think this just, in the same way that in menopause, it kind of confronts you to reevaluate some things. I think that women who are living dynamic lives also have that opportunity. And I guess it's a leap of faith when I say it is possible to do a great job in your leadership and not live in that survival mode. That survival mode is when we're feeling, rushed, often worried, frustrated, distracted, and it's become so normalized, particularly for women after the pandemic. So the risk of burnout for women has never been higher, and midlife starts, in your late 30s, and there's so many pots already on the stove. So I think these things come together. I was with 50 women last week running a session literally on this, a full day, around how we can manage our energy, how we can get really clear on what's most important in our work and our life, and how we can elevate our impact. And so there's different things there. There's some tools and some mindsets, because so often when we're in that survival mode and we become used to living there, the way our internal dialogue, like the way we talk to ourselves, the way we think about ourselves, the way we're able to make decisions, our energy is so contagious, and it rubs off on others as well. And the only antidote, we know, like the only antidote to stress in work and life is recovery. I mean, that is what the research tells us, and mostly for our lived experience as well. And yet, when work stress and life stress is high, so the more stressed we are, there's something called the recovery paradox, the less likely we are to recover. So you've got people working in the evening, and again, back to that burnout, right? It starts with just being someone who is, you like to prove yourself. And so then you work harder as a result of that. And then you can start neglecting your needs. Now, again, this still happens to me sometimes, but I've got that awareness, and with awareness, a choice. Yeah. But, things start to get blurry. You can be in denial of emerging problems around health or work. It starts to be, you withdraw. You start to feel empty, lonely, and depressed, essentially, is that kind of full 12 stages of burnout. And so I think it's incumbent upon organisations, but also on women themselves, to kind of recognise one of the best ways to protect your health and your career is to be able to receive support. And whether that's domestic support or, professional support. And we wait till crisis, don't we? But, I'm a big believer that we all need support. And so that's what I sort of, do. I help a lot of women manage this burnout and figure out how they can have the impact they want to have in their job without, having to totally compensate on their health and their well-being. And it is possible. And men have challenges here too. So energy management, that recovery that's what I'll come back to, is where we're living in survival zone. That's not us at our best.
No.
For those listening, if you think about, something you've navigated recently, something you feel quite pleased about how you showed up, it could be a work situation, could be a challenging work situation, could be something in your personal life where you had to have a conversation that you weren't looking forward to, whatever that was, but where you feel quite pleased about how you showed up. I get people to tap into that, because that's generally what I call you in your success zone, where you're like, actually, I was present, I was open, I felt confident, whatever that was. That's different for everyone, but that's very different to when you're in that survival mode where you're just going from meeting to meeting and you're putting out fires and you're just kind of in that people say the hamster wheel. So the only way we can be in our success zone more often is if we honour that little bit of recovery every day. And so foundation of that is sleep and movement, really, and just getting honest with yourself about
well, I think
the sleep thing.
Well, the good thing is that we'll use my daughter again as an example. She doesn't have trouble with sleep, which is good, but she also is very mindful of trying to get some time for herself to go for a run a few times a week, and
Mhm.
go for walking meetings, so that,
Great.
just getting out into that fresh air, moving your body. And, I think, well, we all know that when you move, you feel so much better after. And I know myself,
Totally.
the other day I was feeling, we've just moved house and life's just been very difficult, and I was feeling quite depleted in all
Mm.
areas. And I just thought, I've just got to get up and go for a walk. And I ended up starting with a walk and finishing with a run. And I felt so good after it. And I thought, you
Yeah.
do know what you need to do, but we just need to make the time to do it, or find out a way to incorporate that balance, as you say. A slice of cake for ourselves, the career and the family, it can all have its little pieces. So you
Yeah.
need to have that. So the recovery, I was wondering
Yeah. And I
what you
think
meant
that
by
your
recovery.
example,
Yeah.
that's what I meant by recovery. Yeah. Recharging your own batteries. And your example's a great one, because sometimes when we least feel like it, like we are feeling a bit depleted, or it's that time of the month and you're premenstrual or whatever, it's like that's the time you probably most need it. But when I talk about recovery, it's that little bit often equals a lot. So it's that little bit of rest, whether it's active or passive rest, and sleep, because I do hear from a lot of women who say, I get by on 6 hours. So it may not be that they're having like a lot of disturbance in the middle of the night, but they're going to bed too late and they're not getting enough sleep. So that recovery, and then to your point, the physical stuff then spills over into how I feel emotionally. And then I can recharge my emotional batteries, catch up with a friend, have a
Yeah.
connection, play a favorite song, and then the mental part, that need to just have a mental break,
Yes.
a psychological disconnect, like working in the evenings has been proven to really impact our emotional state into the
Yes.
into the rest of the evening. Yeah.
Yeah, you've got to have that cut-off point, haven't you, where you can have to try and turn off and just, um, you know, give your mind a bit of a rest.
Yeah,
So,
and it's hard because the
yeah.
more the more that's going on, the harder that is, to be
Mm,
honest.
And again, it comes back to, I think some women just feel a bit anxious about putting their hand up and saying, hey, I can't do it all, need a bit of help. And I think that the more we can try to get that message out as well, that it's okay to ask for help. It's okay. You're not going to be Superwoman. She doesn't exist. So don't
Well,
try.
it brings up the idea of boundaries. So I have
Yeah.
this
Yes. I love
program that
that.
I call like becoming your own chief energy officer.
Oh,
And
I love
part of
that.
becoming your own chief energy officer is learning to shift some of your thinking from very critical thinking to more realistic thinking.
Mm,
So that's dealing with the people pleasing, the rescuing, the things that are keeping us depleted sometimes, or where we're always drawing down our energy. So where's it going? Um, but also boundaries. It comes
yeah.
up, like, is it a time boundary, a physical boundary, a behavior boundary, whatever that is. That's not necessarily easy, but it is essential. So that's the other thing that women in their late 30s, early 40s, my view is if they can start to establish some boundaries now, then they're going to be in much better stead in their careers.
Yes.
Men tend to do that quite well.
Mm,
So, yeah, we need women to get on board.
mm, mm. So let's talk about transformation. How do we transform from, I suppose, our attitude and our way that we do things, to get to that point where, we are being kinder to ourselves, but we still feel like we're performing, for want of a better word.
Yeah, I think that's where the message around, menopause not being the end.
Oh,
I
definitely
mean,
not.
you just mentioned you, and I can see like I know you said you've moved and things have been challenging, but you're obviously someone who's very energetic and you've got a lot of purpose, and passion, so these are the sorts of things that we see, like when women are, it's a time of change, and that can lead to some really good stuff for so many women. Now, that's hard to hear when you are exhausted and you're full of self-doubt. Like, and you're thinking, well, if someone says to me menopause is transformational, I just want to bop them over the head, but once you've got support and your symptoms are in better place, both physical and psychological, I really believe then you can look forward and unlock some new possibilities for yourself. And, what we know about like the changes to the brain, I was just writing my recent blog about this, but the changes to the brain at this stage, that your oxytocin is down, so your caring hormones are down, and, along with your estrogen. And so what that means is, like, you just care, like biologically, you just care a little bit less about everyone else. And so then this opportunity to kind of choose yourself, like you said, a bit more, be there for yourself and that could be like, holding back less in your career and your meetings and your leadership. And actually, we've tamped down a lot of our sort of fierce, anger that can be very positive for a long time. So there's some really good stuff that comes out of that. And, women are getting divorced and they're chucking their jobs and they're creating, change. We're living, one in seven of our generation going to live to 100. So I think it's a time to invest in your growth. And one of the women on our program at the moment, she said the same thing. She said, I'm now going to totally change what I'm doing in my career as a result of my experience, going through menopause. And so that's scary, but that's also kind of taking responsibility and taking action with some self-compassion. So yeah, it's not the end. Priorities can change, and that can be a really, really good thing. And I think, women, they come out of this often, they're not pushovers, and, they're ready for something new. Yeah.
Yeah. And I would say that, I would probably say that, I wish people like you were around when I was younger, but it took me till my mid-50s, and probably I thought I felt good when I was, in my 50s, but now I'm in my mid-60s, which is a bit, I feel really good and really comfortable where I am, and realize that there is so much more I can do if I want to, because it comes back to what I want to do and what my needs are. And I think when you get past all that, there's hope for women out there, but the good thing is that people like you are putting this message out earlier. So women have got that opportunity to maybe be more prepared than I definitely was, and my peers were, because, we were sort of just fumbling along trying to work out what we were doing. But there, it can all be so positive, and it's hard, as you say, to hear it when you're going through all those, symptoms, and that's, but once you learn to manage that, you get the support, life can be so good. And there's still so much more living that you can be doing into the future.
Yeah, and I think it's powerful for this generation coming through, because they can do that differently. Like, we did this research project, and around the world women were saying, I am not getting support from my doctor. Like, I'm either getting turned away, or I'm getting told it's PMS, or I can't even get an appointment, or rah, rah, rah. So there's got to be another way for women to get that support faster, so they can get through to and see these, possibilities emerge. And, I just had a catch up with one of my coaching clients this week, and she said, I just, for the first time, feel like I truly am embodying giving less Fs about what everyone else thinks. And she said, people are saying to me, why is your skin looking so good? And she said, I just kind of feel really different. And I was like, it just was amazing hearing her say that, because I think that's the opportunity is to give a few less Fs.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And it's not hard if you've been a people pleaser all your life, but you just keep working at it. Now, we've been chatting for a while, and you know, we can always chat, you know, I enjoy having the podcast because I meet such interesting women with so much valuable information. But just quickly before we wrap, there's a couple of things I want to talk about. Firstly, you mentioned to me that you're in the midst of a course. Is that for women, or is that for the businesses?
So that one I was referring to is it's called the Menopause Work and Life Transformation Project.
Right.
And so really that is for women, right? So that's for those women who are sort of thinking, what's going on here? This is confusing. I'm a bit exhausted, or I just want to be prepared for this stage. So that is an 8-week program to help women manage and reduce their menopause symptoms. So they can thrive, essentially. And that is, you know, with the collective that we have, you get access, like direct access to, you know, medical menopause experts and specialists, and a bunch of really credible, trusted resources, and a community of like-hearted women, which is really powerful. So, yeah, if anyone's wanting to learn more about that, you know, I'd love to chat to them.
Yeah. Well, I'll also be putting in all your contacts and links into the show notes and the blog post, so that women can contact you and find out more about what you're doing. But before we go, I wanted to ask you a question that I ask all of my guests, and that is, I think you've already answered it, but I will ask it anyway. What does being a woman living well mean to you?
Oh, that's such a great question. I guess I'm going to go with honoring your own needs, you know, prioritizing yourself. And that really brings up this concept of self-compassion that I think truly is a superpower, that, you know, you can be as kind to yourself as you would be to your friends. And this is the emotional work that I think is most transformative for women. So, yeah, you know, move your body and sleep and all that sort of stuff. But I think there's something really there in the richness of the emotional shift when you truly embody self-compassion.
I like asking that question because I really I don't think I've ever had the same answer. And I've just had the 100th episode of the podcast. So I've had 100 interviews and, you know, not the same answer to that question. So it is a broad one, but I think it's something that we need to just reflect on from time to time,
Yeah,
how
love
we're living
that.
well. So thank you
Yeah.
so much for joining me today, Melissa. You're doing a great job, not just supporting women, but also getting the message out there in the work area, in businesses, because, you know, we've got talented women and who are still building their careers, and to have that support from home, but also from their workplace, is just so important. And it's really great that you're doing that work. And I've been delighted to chat with you about that today.
Oh, thanks, Sue. You inspire me too. So well done on 100 episodes too. That's awesome.
Well, thank you. And I didn't start till, this is the 4th season, but it's only been a couple of years. And I, you know, again, you doubt yourself. And then one day I knew I wanted to do it. And I sort of thought, well, who's going to listen to me? And I had people say that to me, who's going to listen? But I just went ahead one day and pressed the button, and there we go. So I just find it inspiring talking to women like yourself. And there's so many women out there that help to inspire others, and we all inspire other people in our own way, and sometimes we don't even realize it.
I think that's such a good point, and that's what, this you know, I use that term, possibility, but you know, I'm the same. I still have doubt. I'm like, what am I going on, you know, LinkedIn and talking about menopause, and you know, and so I'm honest about that too, as you are. I think that's helpful for other women to hear, is just because we're moving forward doesn't mean that we don't have those same feelings. We're human too.
Exactly, exactly. But the difference is we're giving it a go. And I
Yeah.
think that's important. You just go with what you feel, forget about what other people say, and be true to yourself. So thanks again, Melissa. I know you're racing off now to another meeting. So thank you for giving me your time. And I hope that we can talk again in the future.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Sue.
Well, it was lovely to chat to Melissa McGowan today about menopause, leadership, energy management, and transformation. Now, if you've enjoyed the episode, I'd love you to give me a like or leave me a comment and share this with a friend, because I know that it will be of benefit to them, especially if they are going through perimenopause or menopause and trying to struggle with their career. I look forward to seeing you next time. And in the meantime, remember to live well, enjoy life, and most of all, be a woman living life her way. Bye for now.